Chivas Chit-Chat. It's Monday and you are hanging out with us. I'm Gabrielle.
I'm Rosamond.
And I'm Giovanna.
And I'm Kenny.
And this is our guest, Kenny. Thanks for coming, Kenny.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Kenny's our Viewpoints editor and he's going to join us to talk about things. He's not a Chiva.
Chiva, if you will.
We're going to start off with Rosamond, who will be introducing the United topic.
Yes, I'm sure you've all seen this by now because it's been on every timeline, on every social media, but United recently came under attack for the way they handled an overcrowded flight where they pulled, I guess randomly selected a passenger to be removed from the flight, and they selected a man named Dr. Dow. I think that's how you say it. But just the way they went about it was really graphic. The video showed him bleeding, being dragged across the floor in the airplane, and people are just freaking out, and their stocks have gone down by like nearly $1 billion, I think. So I guess also after all of this happened, people are like pulling out his criminal records.
Yeah.
And
That's
apparently,
interesting.
yeah.
Well, that's something that's happened before with like
Yeah.
many other cases where
It's real
there's
messed up.
an incident with violence, and then the perpetrator is definitely in the wrong, but then there's this backlash where the person who was harmed is suddenly also under scrutiny
Yeah.
for unrelated issues, almost ad hominem, if you ask
Yeah,
me.
definitely.
So that happened in the Michael Brown case for however long it was, 3 or 4
Mhm.
years ago, whenever he got shot when he was unarmed and they found out he robbed a convenience store beforehand, as if that made any kind
Yeah.
of difference in the legality of the actual
Of
judicial
what
killing.
happened. Yeah. Even with the man who was stabbed recently by the white supremacist who went all the way to New
Yeah.
York, right?
Mhm.
And he was stabbed, and afterward people were pulling up his criminal records from 14 years ago, as if like this killer knew about his criminal record. Like he didn't know, he was just stabbing random black men on the street, and it's like just a way to, I think, like quiet the voices of those people, because they're not allowed to defend themselves, or like don't have as much power to
Yeah.
speak for themselves.
Yeah. Well, it's a mean of like basically not isolating incidents. It's almost like wrongfully connecting things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's unjust. Is it human nature? Yes. But, I mean, we shouldn't be looking at this doctor's background in terms of a criminal history.
Yeah.
Because, what happened with United is wrong. And I noticed that a lot of people have not only been pulling out in terms of like stocks, but have also just been completely boycotting the airline altogether. And I thought that was interesting because it's kind of a reminder that the power of purchase is in the hands of the people, and we can choose which products and which private companies we are and aren't going to endorse.
And I believe today's the 12th or the 12th?
Today's 12.
Right. So yesterday, April 11th, Oscar Munoz, who's the CEO of United Airlines, released an apology letter about the incident. And a lot of language about this is like, yes, we take full responsibility for it. It's never too late to do the right thing. And in the end, he ends it with, I promise we will do better. Sincerely, Oscar. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way to end an apology letter and kind of try to end this whole story behind the incident that happened, like, we'll do better next time. Maybe kind of like foreshadowing that, is there going to be a next time?
Yeah.
Are y'all just completely going to change the structure of United and how y'all sell these tickets? Because y'all know United likes to overbook their flights because they assume people aren't going to make it or won't show up.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what kind of action they're going to take, but apparently they'll say they're going to do better, or they're promising that they'll do better. What do y'all think about that?
I mean, I think the PR is so bad. Like, this is the second time in a few months that United's been under scrutiny for something. First was the leggings thing, and we talked about that on this show. But I just think their PR is not doing its job. 'Cause it's like, don't reiterate the problem, don't try to defend yourself. That's never the right way. Just accept the responsibility and apologize to this man and find a way to move on. I think they're dwelling on it too much, and it's definitely like keeping people's attention on the topic.
I think part of the harm done to this guy is that in the way that the current media culture works, that's the only reason that someone like the New York Post brought up his past criminal convictions, which may or may not be true. It's just the way that we consume media as entertainment affects the way that it's produced, and it was really hurried and it was rushed, and there's no real significance to the fact that this dude may or may not have, I think, what was the allegation? Traded drugs for sex or something like that, which doesn't matter at all. But he can't recover from that ever unless he sues these people and makes enough money to not have to be a doctor anymore. But the United has kind of forced that on him. It's a problem with victims in today's culture, I feel like.
Yeah.
They get too much unnecessary media attention because it gets clicks and it gets views.
Well, he's a civilian at the end of the day, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what they're trying to do, and at least I think what Kenny was trying to explain, is that people like to take these victims and like to create stories behind them to take away from why they were victimized in the first place or where the issue started. The issue here is United Airways mistreated this man who was on a plane, their plane, but they're trying to take away from that by adding, this is what this man did prior to his time on this plane, and this is why this issue is not important. It's because he's a man like this.
Oh, I don't think it's that. I think it's just there's a further reaching problem of capitalizing on if this dude's newfound 10 seconds of fame or whatever. The New York Post didn't do that to discredit or to take the blame away from United. They did it to get ad revenue.
Yeah.
Like there's no other real reason, and people reacted pretty harshly to it, so they took the article down.
So
it's still out there now.
It's like first you put out the breaking story, what happens, but you need a follow-up. You need to keep the story going. So what do? Let's see, who is this man? Let's zoom into the victim, and it's like then you end up going into territory that is not really necessary.
It's some questionable ethics.
You think the story would have been different had there not been a video about it?
I don't think it would have gone this far.
But there's always going to be a video.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like in our day and age,
That's a good
like
point.
everything is going to be video. So
I think that can be good. That prompts things to change. Like that's the reason we got out of Vietnam, really, in the 70s, because they started televising it. I mean,
wow, taking it back, Kenny.
it is. And then you start with like Eric Brown, and not Eric Garner in New York, the guy that was choked by the cops. That was arguably as big of an issue as it was because of the video of it. Because people can see, wow, that's really fucked up.
Yeah, it actually happened.
Yeah, and I think you're right that it did make it bigger, like a bigger story than it would have been otherwise if there hadn't been a video.
So are you guys going to use United? I mean, we're all in college. I don't know how much air travel the four of us are going to do, but what do you guys think?
I fly Spirit because it's cheap.
I never fly.
I don't fly either.
Really? Okay.
The only time I've ever flown is with like school groups, and I would have to go with a school
Same.
group.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't fly. You
Yeah.
just drive, take a bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So moving from talking about airplanes, we'll go to domestic and U.S. policy and international policy. About 6 days ago, the 4-year-long Syrian crisis experienced a pretty severe escalation with a U.S. missile strike in Syria, and since then, many events have basically unfolded. I'm looking at the New York Times right now, and about 8 hours ago, we see that Trump said Putin is partly to blame for the Syrian crisis. I mean, every couple of hours, reputable news sources are coming out with new information, new bits of dialogue. What do you guys think of the Syrian crisis and how the media's been treating the crisis as a whole? What are your thoughts?
I think it's ridiculous that it took us 6 years to respond militarily to what's going on there. It's the worst genocide and mass migration of human people since the Holocaust. It's inexcusable that we haven't done something before last Thursday night, in my opinion.
I mean, when I heard the news about it, I was very torn as to how I feel about it. Just because, yeah, it was right after the chemical weapons were released, and there was all this video online of like kids on the ground, like gasping for air, dying, like all these really awful videos.
Yeah.
And then the strike happened after. I'm like, okay, someone is doing something, but is it the right thing? Is this gonna actually help, or is it just gonna create more commotion for those people and for us here back home? So it was really, I don't know, it's one of the most like confusing things for me. But I'm just looking at the logic of it. Trump's anti-immigration ban banned
Yeah.
Syrians from coming in here, from coming into our country, but we're like sending missiles to go apparently help them out in their country. So it's like, are you really concerned about those people and their well-being if they're trying to escape that situation and you won't let them?
Yeah, we'll destroy your once beautiful city, the cradle of humanity, but we're not going to let you into our country for safety.
Yeah.
We didn't destroy any of their cities, we destroyed an air base. And we didn't even destroy the whole thing. It was to send a very targeted message. There were no civilians around. This is all according to the information that's being presented by major news outlets. So this could be another like Gold Tonkin incident kind of thing, but we won't know that for years probably. But it wasn't that we went in and bombed, say, like some people suggest, a city that ISIS holds, which is filled with civilians used as like buffers between them and law enforcement acting officials. But here it was to say one thing, which was to stop using chemical weapons, which Obama tried to regulate in 2013 when he made a deal with Assad that obviously didn't work because the Russians allowed him to keep some chemical weapons because they were in charge of policing it.
But you're still perpetuating violence against violence, and how is that going to create peace in the situation? And it seems to me like it was a rush operation.
Yeah, it did seem really hurried, but I think for being as hurried as it is, it was about as good as you could expect from a military strike, especially from this idiot president.
But I mean, my thing is like chemical weapons, the line, like there's been so much, but there's been so much awful stuff happening before that.
Yeah.
Why does it have to get to chemical weapons for us to take any type of action?
I mean, for the past 4 years, we've seen this conflict develop and emerge. I don't really understand why it's okay for us to use such violent measures when, I don't know, the U.S. isn't like the global police force. There are always humanitarian means of going about correcting wrongdoing.
I don't think there are here. We didn't. In the case of Assad, who's been using chemical weapons for the past 4, 5, or 6 years against his own people, there's no reason to. And honestly, you could talk about the power of video here again, when we actually saw the kids dying from these terrible sarin gas attacks. But these things have been going on, and I don't think we can point to precedent that Obama said and say we should just continue to do that when what he did was completely inadequate in resolving this issue. And we should be letting people in. That's the main issue.
Yeah.
There's more Syrians that have left than I think remain, but
so like how valid is Assad's power anyway if there's no one to control anymore? You've killed half of them have left. Like what are we still fighting for?
Yeah, that's a good point, because one thing that my international relations teacher brought up is that Syria as a state really doesn't exist anymore. It's completely it's a void. Yeah. And the reason that one thing that we could be doing that we haven't yet is bombing the oil pipelines that go from ISIS to Assad that provide his regime with oil and provide ISIS with money. But we haven't done that because we might go in there afterwards, or our allies might, and capitalize on the existing infrastructure there. It's really messed up, but I think that getting involved militarily, even if it is to some dubious political end of gaining oil revenue in the long run, or international standing, or nationalism, and increase in pride in the president. But even if all of those things are accomplished, as long as we get him out of power, I think it's worth it, because he is an evil dictator. He's the garbage.
I'm not a fan of Bashar al-Assad, but something I will say is, if the U.S. intervenes, as we have through many world travesty, genocide, is it not true that history tells us another dictator will rise to the challenge? And if so, could this new leader not be worse? And we've seen that in many countries, especially in the Middle East.
That's true.
And so I wonder if U.S. interventionist mindset is necessarily good. And then I guess as a side note, it seems to me like at the end of the day, violence doesn't stop violence. And the U.S. doesn't have a perfect track record with winning wars. I mean, you mentioned Vietnam earlier.
Yeah.
But I guess that's adds to the other question: should Americans do anything at all? Should we even intervene? I think there was I saw this interesting tweet, or this interesting statement Joaquin Castro released on the day, I think moments after the incident. He said that Congress should be playing a role in what should happen, or the decisions that are made out of the country, especially when it comes to the military. But that just made me think, doesn't that just slow down our ability to do things in other countries, decisions being made? At least in the past, it has completely slowed us down for years. And it just makes me think, are we even going to make it in time? Are we even going to be able to help these people in time before the entire place is obliterated or something?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the decision to strike, like you were saying, is that intervention tactic going to prevent another dictator from rising? I think right now it's a humanitarian issue. It's a do or die thing. It's let's protect these people right now. But I don't know that tactic exactly did that. Because
That's
bombing a
what I'm saying.
specific, because the strikes were at the specific base where the chemical weapons were being kept,
launched,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So bombing that specific place is not really gonna help those people. Yeah, it'll maybe prevent that from happening again.
That's
and
the idea.
Yeah.
That's
but,
helping them.
Yeah, but it's not getting them out of that situation. I feel like
It's not
I feel
providing
like-
water or
yeah.
food or blankets.
I feel like the reaction was because that's what the world expects of the U.S., but it's not necessarily, it's not coming from a place of, these people really need help. Because the number one way to help them is get them out of that situation to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right, but I don't think we can provide water and food and all these things to people, especially not at least our state cannot, because there's no way they'd let us in.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to, you can argue the merits, the moral merits of interventionism, but making a deal with a despot who is only trying to cling to power in a very volatile region is incredibly risky. And that's what happened. That's why these kids died. Is that we didn't take a harder line against him. We said you have to get these chemical weapons out of here. And he said, okay, I'll do it. And then obviously that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And they've had he himself, Assad, has had a lot of chances in the international community to regain his standing or to stop this horrible massacre of his people, but he
Yeah.
hasn't. And I don't think that anything other than absolute military destruction will end him, end his reign there.
But this attack seemed like it was against the use of chemical weapons solely.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it was an attack against the entire catastrophe that's going on. But I guess that's one segment of it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think there's something else to consider, which is that in global context, this conflict, as it's come to be, isn't just between the U.S. and Syria. I mean, we also have Russia as a major player. Putin, for instance, is basically on thin ice with the U.S. and there's relations are freezing over. And then even North Korea released a statement that basically saying the United States has done something deplorable. I mean, is this not intensifying the divide that exists in the world globally? And is it worth it to, 4 years too late, destroy weapons?
Yeah, but it could go on longer. I think better late than never. We've seen
Yeah.
civil wars and unrest go on for decades. I think better now than never, for sure.
I mean, in terms of Russia, apparently the Russian military knew that there were going to be airstrikes in Syria anyway, so it just makes me think, like, what are the relationships in there, or with the U.S. and the Middle East?
Yeah.
Who are the apparent allies, or who are the apparent people who are trying to attack or help, that type of thing, like those relationships and how they play into part.
That's why it makes me think it's all for show. All for, like, that's what's expected of us as the U.S., so let's do that. But it doesn't seem like intentions or tactics were in the right place.
That could very well be the case.
Well, and could like the UN, for example, have provided a better solution? And if not, then what can we do? Kenny's like, no.
No, definitely not.
And if not, what could we do to reform those institutions so they can provide more humanitarian aid as opposed to military? I don't know. It's just brings up is a
I
reform.
mean, like you were saying, humanitarian aid at this point is not helping, because it's like tossing someone a life vest when they're drowning instead of pulling them out of the water. Like, we're providing humanitarian aid and like food and water and all those things. That's just like, okay, let's give you these things so you can be able to survive in this situation, barely. But we don't want people to like live, grow up, raise families in like a situation like that where they're barely surviving, and you never know when the next like blast is gonna come and wipe your entire like village or town away.
Yeah. Which is why we should be letting them come into our country.
Definitely, yeah.
That's
Trust
that's the most important thing.
That is
Is
the
that
most
we should be
important
letting these people that are fleeing this horrible region come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, like come to the U.S. exactly.
Well, a lot of people are fearful that Trump taking military action is going to put us in danger. What do you guys think about that?
In danger of
Like,
what?
put our country in danger of like terrorist attacks or just going to war in general too, you were talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, there were lots of tweets that said that night when it was happening, like, oh my God, World War III. They were not funny. I did not
Yeah.
laugh. I was
Yeah.
surprised. But I can see why historically it can happen
Yeah.
because it's happened before.
Yeah.
Crap, I don't know. If we do go to war, real war, after we did this strike, Russia rescinded an agreement that we had detailing when our planes were going to fly, so that way there wouldn't be any confusion and there wouldn't be an accidental reason to start a war. And so I think we're inching closer to it, and it's freaking me out. But
I mean,
we'll find out.
Trump's relationship with Russia and like Putin is just makes the whole, it adds
It's been
another
strange.
layer. Yeah, it adds
It's been
another
strange.
layer.
Since before his election,
Yeah.
it's been very close.
Yeah, and it makes the situation way more complex because
Yeah,
you're
you don't know
thinking
what's
like,
going on.
do we believe any of this? I don't. I'm very
Really?
skeptical of everything now because it's like on a personal level, yeah, personal and like politics is different, but is it?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Well, I mean, yes, I guess.
No, I mean, I don't know.
It's different, but is it? Yes.
Well, moving from Russia, we also have a third topic of the evening. Jovi, you want to take it away?
So we'll be moving to New York now. So New York recently gave an announcement saying that they would be offering free tuition for their public universities for any of those individuals whose families make under $100,000 a year.
Yay!
So I think that's an exciting movement, and I know more states are looking into doing that for their universities as well, or colleges and universities. What do y'all think? How do y'all think that will affect New York? Or what if Texas started offering free universities for their public schools?
Okay. I'm moving to New York. Okay, that's
See,
all
actually,
I know.
the catch is if you have to be a resident of New York, and you have to, after you graduate, stay in New York for 2 years and be a
That's
resident there.
fine.
Really?
That
Yeah,
is.
that's the catch.
What if
Perfect.
you
Yeah,
were
makes
born in
sense.
New York? Because my birth certificate, I was born in Rochester, New
What?
York. Yeah. Do you
New
think I
York.
could,
No, I'm not sure about that.
maybe
I don't
be a
Transfer,
resident?
like-
Yeah, you
Be a
definitely
resident?
Transfer immediately.
Yeah.
That's okay. I mean, it takes a year to get residency, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Take a couple years.
Stay there for a year,
Isn't
go
it
to school.
interesting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm game. But I don't know. I think it's a positive development. I wonder if like, I mean, I know it's a state level issue, but it'd be cool for it to be like a federal thing.
I
National.
agree.
It all just happened at once.
Well, and I mean, I think,
Complicated, but
yeah, I think Texas, I mean, if all the states do follow suit, Texas unfortunately would probably be one of the last.
Well, yeah.
Uh, it's just one of those things.
We also have an idiot for a governor. Abbott is a fool, and I hate it.
Not a fan. Not a fan of it.
Kenny's not a fan.
What I'm wondering is like how will this like free tuition type thing affect the private universities who will not have free tuition? So St. Ed's, for instance, private institution. Will students even apply there? Like, will they see the benefit of liberal arts private universities, or will they even get that kind of education in New York?
Maybe the competition will drive prices down. Market forces.
Yes.
If everywhere adopted, free tuition for public universities, then hopefully I wouldn't be paying as much as I am.
I mean, it'll take a long time for us to see that same change across the nation, so I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah. I'm also thinking, because I have a lot of things to think about this topic, the competitiveness to get into those public universities will be much more competitive.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's a lot of middle class, lower income families that are offered this opportunity, it's now a little bit more difficult to get into these universities because they're free. So will they have access to like resources in high school, like SAT prep, AP prep, to be able to apply and be competitive for these spots in these free universities?
Yeah.
That's another
hope so.
thing.
Well, and even for students who, is there going to be a ripple effect for students who even don't decide to go into higher education, or maybe they want to receive a two-year degree? Are the high schools and middle schools going to be positively affected by this change? It's like a kind of like a backwards ripple effect.
Interesting.
I think that if, when you make it to where a lot of the reason that low-income students don't strive for, to go to college is because they realize there's no one going to be able to afford that.
Yeah.
So if New York opens that up to any and all people that have the merits to get into college, I think that would be really beneficial for poor kids.
I mean, New York is already so overpopulated. Would you guys think that'll definitely impact that?
I think certain regions of New York are overpopulated.
Yeah.
Definitely like the more like attractive, habitable parts. But I don't know. I guess they'll just build up.
Yeah.
Continue to build it.
Or we could just start relocating people from the attractive parts to the ugly, gross, garbage areas. Buffalo, for instance.
Oh my dad is from Buffalo.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh, I'm hurting.
Buffalo is like the Houston of New York.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Well,
I'm not
I
from
know.
Houston. I'm from Dallas.
Kenny,
Penny just made everyone at St. Ed's very angry.
please let us
Only
know.
the bad ones.
Dallas or Houston? I'm kidding. Don't start that. Don't start
Reply in the
that.
comments.
Dallas or Houston. There's more of us at this school than you, okay?
Yeah.
Houston all the way.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Chivas Chit-Chat. Don't forget to tune in next week, Monday, Facebook Live on Hilltop Views at 6 p.m. Bye, y'all.